Let's finish session 43 with more information about the conditions in fourth and fifth density. Let's begin. We're picking up from last video where we were talking about the conditions of existence basically in fourth density, as Don asked on physical pain, or what Ra described as weariness, that happens at the end of the lifetime of the incarnation of the entity. That led to the 90,000 year lifespan that entities have on average on fourth density. There was also discussion about the cycle of harvest, which is like in our planet we have 75,000 years for third density, or in our planet, in every planet third density is 75,000 years. In fourth density is 30 million years. 90,000 is the lifespan. And then we also discussed that led to harvest, like how the harvest is as opposed to here we're having individual harvest, like everybody gets harvested individually, because that's the nature of third density, as it is in fifth density. Actually, we talked about that too, but fourth density is a factor of social memory complex, like it's a collective harvest that happens, and we discussed all of that in the first video. So if you haven't, go watch it because it's important. And now we're just going to explore some loose questions that Don had. I say loose not so much because they're not related to each other. They're actually very related to each other, but just they're not as profound, I guess is what I wanted to say. And with that in mind, we know that's where we're coming from, and we're talking about fourth density here. And Don says in question 16, we know that the physical vehicle in fourth density that is used during space-time, I'm assuming, is quite similar to the one that we now use in third density. Is this correct? I don't know where Don got this idea, but it is apparently correct. Ra says that the chemical elements used are not the same, however the appearance is similar. Now it's interesting that Ra says, now that I see it, that the chemical elements used are not the same, meaning that there are chemical elements. So I'm not sure how this body is, but it does resemble and resembles a lot our current appearance. We know that it's lighter, of course. Some people I've heard that they say that it's a taller vehicle, so we're taller. I don't know in reference to what that is, but there seems to be a kind of mix between light body and physical body, for what I see. Not sure how important or relevant that is, but it's just cool to know. And chemical elements, I'm not really sure what type of chemistry we would have there. I mean, there is food, as we're gonna find out, so there has to be some sort of chemical structure, I believe, but how it is, I have no idea. We don't get, unfortunately, we don't get any insights here. So Don says, is it necessary to eat food in fourth density? It's a pretty cool question. Ron says this is correct. And then Don says the mechanism of, shall we say, social catalyst due to a necessity for feeding the body then is active in fourth density. Is this correct? And Ra says this is incorrect. The fourth density being desires to serve, and the preparation of foodstuffs is extremely simple due to increased communion between entity and living foodstuff. Therefore, this is not a significant catalyst, but rather a simple precondition of the space-time experience. The catalyst involved is the necessity for the ingestion of foodstuffs. This is not considered to be of importance by fourth density entities, and it, therefore, aids in the teach learning of patience. So, there's a couple of things to take out of here or speculate. First, there is the need for food, as we'll find out in other densities as well. But food is not as important as it is for us here, at least not from a mental level and definitely not from a physical level. Again, I'm not familiar with the chemical structure in fourth density, so I don't know how that relates that way in terms of what we need to eat and so on. But they say, all right, so Don is asking, yes, well, first, we do eat food. That question is, it's obvious, or that answer. And then Don asks, if the catalyst is the same, because we have a catalyst here as they have mentioned before, like I think it was last session we talked about the scarcity of food in places like Africa, and how people are 4 density oriented in trying to share the love, and share the care, for other people by bringing them, things that they need, in this case food, medicine, and so on. So I know that's where Don's coming from. And if the catalyst for feeding, is the same, meaning that there is some scarcity, or that we help each other try to to meet those requirements and so on, which again, it's a big catalyst here in our world. Yeah, Don's phrasing is important when he says social catalyst due to a necessity for feeding the body in 4 density. And Ross says that it's not correct because it's not the same. We don't have that sort of food system that we have here. And so they say the 4 density being desires to serve. Like, that's the first thing. The mind of the 4 density being naturally needs to be changed and completely different than 3rd density. First of all, there is no veil, so there is no pondering, no wondering, no philosophical questions about where are we from, where are we going to, what is our nature, and so on. That's a huge relief for the mind, and that's why Catalyst is so big here, because we're working in darkness without knowing who we are. We think we have an idea, and anybody that says, I know who we are, is in essence, deluding themselves. And, the closest we can get to is just saying, we are pure consciousness, that's just what it is, and I don't want to say the closest. It's the only thing we can say for sure, that we are consciousness. That is through the rationale, of everything. And, that's discussed, in Hinduism and Buddhism a lot. So I'm not going to talk about it here. But it is consciousness. So in any case, that is not, say, a problem, something to worry about in 4 density. But it is a desire to serve. The desire to serve is so huge, so important in 4 density that that's all we think about. So the preparation of foodstuff is extremely simple due to increased communion. So they say the 4 density being desires to serve, and the preparation of foodstuff is extremely simple due to increased communion between entity and living foodstuff. So there is a lot of communion, definitely, between the entity. So imagine, there's a couple of things to see here. Imagine if you can commune with nature and yourself, as meditation is, without the veil, and with a broader perception and experience. It's about sensations too. That's something that gets a lot more accessible than in 3rd density, in 4th density. And so they say, therefore, this is not a significant catalyst because it's very easy to prepare foodstuff or food, but rather a simple precondition of the space-time experience that is just necessary, for us to cook. It's just, a precondition that we need to in space-time. When they say space-time experience is the incarnational period. Remember, we do have a body in 4 density, just like we do have in 5th and 6th and possibly 7. I'm not sure about 7. So they say the catalyst involved is the necessity for the ingestion of foodstuff. So the catalyst, is opposed to, finding food or bringing food to others, or, providing food in general. The catalyst is actually to ingest the food. They say this is not considered to be of importance by 4 density entities because, it's just so simple. It's like breathing, it teaches patience, almost like breathing here. And I mean, breathing is not a big concern so far in our reality. We just breathe. And we take it for granted sometimes. But the power of breathing, and I'm just going a little sidetrack here, but the power of breathing is huge. I mean, when you learn how to breathe, just learning how to breathe, because everybody breathes, yes, but do they really know how to breathe? Most people don't, and this is incredible, because you're supposed to learn how to open your diaphragm, at least, like that's the basic of breathing, the basis of breathing, and conscious breathing, of course. And something similar might be, in 4 density in terms of eating. You have to stop doing what you're doing in service to others and try to ingest food for yourself. You have to take care of yourself. You can see also what is blending here is the love and compassion that it's so vibrant in 4 density that people or entities, let's call them people, why not, are so focused in trying to give that love and receive that love and just have this exchange of love and compassion for others, helping, aiding, and so on, that you just forget to eat, so that's why it teaches patience, because you need to calm down, relax, eat your food, keep going. You can also see that here in 3rd density, there's a lot of people who are more interested, in I would say, how we call people heroes, those, and they truly are, who are involved in, say, natural disaster, and they give their lives, for others just to help them. That is, pure love and compassion. That is 4 density calling for sure. And that they forget to eat, they forget to to even sleep. Not that they forget, but they're so focused on the task at hand and doing what they do that that's why we rightfully we call them heroes, to my point of view, in any case. So that is the conditions in 4 density. That's just how people live there. Question 19. Don says, could you expand a little bit on how that aids in the teach learning of patience? And Ra says, to stop the functioning of service to others long enough to ingest foodstuff is to invoke patience. So I just kind of got ahead of myself there by explaining it. Question 20. Don says, I'm guessing that it is not necessary to ingest food in 5th density. Is this correct? Ra says, this is incorrect. However, the vehicle needs food which may be prepared by thoughts. Don says, what type of food would this be? Ra says, you would call this type of food nectar or ambrosia or a light broth of golden white hue. So it sort of makes sense at this point just to remember that, well, first of all, I think I went through 3 questions, right? But they were pretty self-explanatory. The need for food, yes. In 5th density, yes, and I explained yes. So the need for food in 5th density, and also the type of food that that they have in 5th density. So it's important to keep in mind here is that in higher densities, our communion with nature or reality in general, because it's not nature anymore. I don't believe we have an environment to deal with like we have here, like this ecosystem. I'm not sure how it works, because we're going into higher dimensions. We're going into higher states of consciousness where our existence and our interaction with reality, with the cosmos, is more energetic and it's more emotional, in the sense, not emotions, let me say experience in general. It's a more crystal clear experience that we're having, and we can see things more as they are, as opposed to here where everything is obscured. And it kind of makes sense that, obviously, well, when you can also know that in 6th density you can manipulate matter at will, or manipulate sounds terrible always in in the law of one context, but I'm talking about the communication that exists between intelligent energy in through sixth density. For example, the building of the pyramids, it was done by thought, because the thought of sixth density communicates with the intelligent energy present in the atoms, basically, that create the molecular structure of all the stones and or the sand. And this is why it's funny, but this is the reason why they can't find the way and how the blocks that were brought to the pyramids are so precisely cut, and they're almost like merged together, and they say like the precision of cutting of this is beyond laser. It's just so they fit so perfectly that you can't even put a card in between them, because it's so perfectly cut and tight. Also, they found, I think, hair in between the stones. Like there's hair. It makes sense. I mean, when everything was condensed into stone as they created it, everything that was in there, they probably find seashells and stuff. They probably have found seashells and things like that, because everything was merged with the sand. And this is the communication with it's almost like creating music as opposed to beating up the matter as we do here. Like we have a way to also control or manipulate matter, but in this case it's just brute force compared to to sixth density. So with that in mind, creating food as it is a sort of recirculation of energy, because that's what it is. When we look at food here, we're looking at energy that is being used in the body by different processes, the intelligence of the body using it into energy, which is thermogenesis, or protein synthesis, which is creation of tissue. And there's of course distribution of minerals and vitamins that are important for the functioning of everything else, right? But that is the function of food. Food is supposed to do that. Interesting to mention also, just when we're talking about this, what they call breatharians, I think it's what they're called. I forgot the name of this recent. He died in 2020, but this very famous breatharian Hindu, who I think died at the age of 80 something or 90, and since he was 14 he stopped eating, and he would just do sun gazing and breathing, of course. So it's I'm not advocating this, of course, because it can be very dangerous for the untrained mind. But it is a thing, this is possible. He's not the only one, of course. This is, there's a lot of examples of people like this, and it's something that shouldn't be approached carelessly. But you're smart enough. I shouldn't be making this caveats or disclaimers. But in any case, it is possible to live like that. And who knows how the body sustains itself through just sun gazing and breathing. But it is, it's sort of moving of energy. No matter what happens, there is energy flowing in the body. So in higher densities, we have the possibility of creating this. Did they say that already? I think I went on a tangent. Yeah, I don't think. Do they say it? Did they say it already? Yeah, it's prepare by thought. Yeah, that's why I'm going through this. So it's prepare by thought, just like everything else, and it gets a little bizarre, I suppose, at this point to imagine how fifth density is, fourth density also, but fifth density and sixth. How, and there's a little bit more about how bizarre it gets in the next questions in sixth density. But in fifth density, the food is prepared by thought, just like I said. It's just how we communicate with energy, and that energy is recirculated through the body. How? I don't know. That's as far as I can go with speculation. So it is light, right? That's what they said. They said it's food nectar or ambrosia, a light broth or golden white hue. So I don't know. I'm trying with my human mind to visualize this, but it's just, I don't know. It seems light. Like we're light beings eating light, which reminds me of I went to a Mexican restaurant once, and the waiter was vegetarian, and at the time I would eat meat, of course, and we were talking about meat, and he said, you know what, my father, who was a carnivore or ate meat, and I was always sensitive with animals, the waiter told me, and very sensitive with animals, so I couldn't eat animals when I was a kid and so on. You can tell that this guy was a wanderer for sure. And he tells me, you know, but my father says something that to me that always stuck in my mind, and he said, you know, don't worry, son, you know, we're light eating light. And at the time, you know, I was science oriented and I didn't know anything about spirituality, but I thought it was like the wisest thing the man said, because it is true. You know, everything is solar light here, being even from the scientific mind, we know that, you know, everything is light. You know, the ecosystem starts with the sun, and then the plants transform or use the energy of the sun to create carbon-based food, you know, and that food is digested by the animals. And I mean, it's a long chain. Bacteria, mycelium gets involved in all of this, and we are animals, yeah, at the end of the production. But you know, the animals are just eating light in essence. So I guess this food chain becomes a lot simplified in the future evolution of the spirit, and we're just creating light and eating light. And I wonder what it tastes. Probably that's a very human question. In fact, though, since we got time, because this is kind of like it's gonna be a short video, I'm sure. Sometimes I get questions like, how are we going to see or feel or hear or taste things in other densities? And I'm always reminded that those are human senses, and they don't necessarily need to, they might, but they don't necessarily need to be equivalent in other densities. Like we can have just a processing, say a brain that processes energy and experience in different ways. So we don't have to see, but rather feel. You know, we don't have to taste, but rather, again, experience the food, you know, and maybe communicate with the food and have, who knows, you know, what's happening, you know, at this level of consciousness, because what we're doing is just communing, as Ra said, commune with nature, or commune with, you know, foodstuff, living foodstuff, and the entity, right? So there's more of a conscious information flowing between, you know, the environment and the self. Plus, there is no veil, so that makes things so much different. So, anyhow, I've digressed a lot. So, Don says, what is the purpose of ingesting food in fifth density? It's a good question. And Ross says, this is a somewhat central point. He agrees. The purpose of space-time is the increase in catalytic action appropriate to the density. One of the preconditions for space-time existence is some form of body complex. Such a body complex must be fueled in some way. So, I think it's a very simple answer, or a very simple mechanism that Ra is explaining here. Because Don is saying, like, what's the purpose of eating food, you know, in fifth density? And I think it's a good question because, like I said, you know, you're approaching that point where everything is just light, you know, and everything is just, everything material, so to speak, is energy. Well, every material is energy anyways. But you get the point, like, we're getting closer to that interaction with energy. So what's the purpose of eating food? And Ra says, you know, that it's a central point because, considering that the purpose of space-time is to have a body, and to have a body you have to have it fueled somehow. So it's kind of like maintaining a body is a catalytic, do they say it's a catalytic? Space-time is the increase in catalytic action appropriate to the density. Okay, they don't associate it with the body complex, but I think it is. They don't mention it. Yeah, they say one of the preconditions of space-time existence is some form of body, and it needs to be maintained, basically fueled. So yeah, it is important to maintain the body. That's just basically it. You're not in time space where there is no need to maintain any body. You are simply your energy body there, and you're I guess you are in the form maker body in time space, and looking at the time space body that you're going to have analog in third, fourth, fifth density. So in time space, there is no need to maintain a body, because you're communing already with your sixth density. I don't know, it gets kind of weird here, because now we're talking about consciousness being accessible to sixth density, because that's your higher self programming everything. And so yeah, you're almost like the whole thing at that point, but you need a space-time to have catalytic action. That's the purpose of space-time, to have catalyst. So incarnation is for that purpose, and one of the preconditions for incarnation is to maintain the body. And that's fueling or eating the body, or not eating the body. Well, you can eat other bodies, I'm sure, but everything being energy. Anyhow, I don't know where I'm at this point in my imagination, but you get the idea. And yeah, that's the purpose. I think I wanted to mention something else here, but no, that's it. So yeah, that's just a precondition of space-time. You need to maintain the body. Simple as that. So the mechanism is simple. We can just go with our imagination and what we know about space-time and time-space. But anyhow, question 23, Don says, then there is in third density the fueling of our bodily complex. Not only simply fuels the complex, but gives us opportunities to learn service. In fourth density is not only I'm reading terrible. I'm gonna start from the beginning, and I'm gonna skip that first part where Don just kind of fumbles a little bit. He says, in third density there is the fueling of our bodily complex. Not only simply fuels the body. Okay, rereading again. Third time's the charm. In third density, the fueling of our bodily complex not only simply fuels the complex, but gives us opportunities to learn service. Ha, got it. Don continues and says, in fourth density, it not only fuels the complex, but gives us opportunities to learn patience. In fifth density, it fuels the complex, but does it teach? It's very, very perceptive of Don. So Ra says, in fifth density, it is comfort for those of like mind gather together to share in this broth, thus becoming one in light and wisdom, while joining hearts and hands in physical activity. Thus, in this density, it becomes a solace rather than a catalyst for learning. So, it was a really good question what Don said, and that I didn't read right. But so Don is saying, in third density, the fueling of our bodily complex, or the fueling our body and giving us opportunities to learn service. Those are the reasons why we eat. We eat to fuel the body, and also gives us opportunities to serve. Okay, that's the purpose of food in third density. Okay, I think you got it, but I didn't yet. So no, just to fuel the body and to have opportunities to serve and learn service. Then in fourth density, it only fuels the complex but gives us opportunities. So in fifth density, it fuels the complex, but what does it teach? It's the question. Like, what is we learn service in third density, we learn patience in fourth density. What do we learn in fifth density? And so Ra says, in fifth density, it is comfort for those of like mind gathered together. I don't know, that just sounds weird when I read it. In fifth density, it is comfort for those of like mind gathered together to share in this broth. Okay, I get it. Thus becoming one in light, in wisdom, while joining hearts and hands in physical activity. Thus, in this density, it becomes a solace rather than a catalyst for learning. This sounds so celestial, like the way Ron's explaining that the food or the consuming of energy is, it's just getting together and sharing this broth, and it's like, I don't know, it sounds so peaceful, so harmonious. I love it. So yeah, thus in this density, it becomes a solace rather than a catalyst for learning. So food at this point is not so much a catalyst for learning, but just like, let's get together and eat, and it's rejoicing together. Basically, it's almost like let's, in Spanish countries, especially in mine, we find any excuse to have a party. That's why we have all kind of holidays. We're celebrating Saint Bernardino, because whatever. It's just like, all right, let's drink and have some food. So there's always a party. You would go to any Spanish country, and especially, the towns. In towns, cities, not so much, I guess. But in the towns, you will always find a party. Every weekend, there's a reason for a party. People get together and, it's just a lot of fun. So, it's just an excuse. So in 5th density, we're all Spanish, apparently. We just get together. Hey, let's drink this this broth, this light, this golden hue. Yay! We have golden tacos and rice and beans. I love rice and beans. So all this talk about food's making me hungry. Let's go to the next question. But yeah, that's the purpose in 5th density, just rejoicing together. Don says, I'm simply trying to trace you might say, the evolution of this catalyst that then, as you say, changes in 5th density. I might as well complete this and ask if there is any ingestion of food in 6th density. Is my hunger making me read this wrong? Ra says, this is correct. However, the nature of this food is that of light and is impossible to describe to you in any meaningful way as regard the thrust of your query. So this is where I say it was going to get bizarre, like trying to understand food or ingestion of food or maintenance of body in higher densities, because in 6th density, Ra says like it's impossible for us to explain the nature of this light, but we can only imagine that is, I don't know, some sort of exchange of light that exists, especially knowing that they can live in the sun. So the sun being the emanation of primordial energy and light itself. It's like the creation of light. The Father is there, and by me saying Father, I mean the light principle that is called Father. Love is the feminine aspect. So some people get confused with that and say like, oh, it's very whatever, male oriented. But it's not, the Confederation talks about this too. Father, light is male, love is female. That's just polarity, light, love, light. So yeah, I just imagine that this is just, an interaction between the light being generated and the light that 6th density beings are. Ra has said that if they were to show themselves here in their bodies, we would just see like a very bright sort of, thing going on. It's just like light. They're very light, and it makes sense. They're getting into 7th density, where that's the portal to intelligent infinity, and 7th density by itself, before being absorbed by the black hole, needs to be pure light. So it makes sense that they are approaching that. So approaching light speeds, approaching the sound barrier. Don says, in 4th density on this planet, after we are totally transitioned and the harvest is complete, 4th density beings will be incarnate on the surface of this planet as we know it now. This particular surface, is that correct? And Ra says the possibility vortices indicate this to be most likely. This is just if 4th density, right? Isn't that what Don said? 4th density of this planet, after we're totally transitioned and the harvest is complete, 4th density beings will be incarnate on the surface of this planet. Yes, so it's just us 4th density beings. Yes, we're going to inhabit this planet, or people are going to inhabit. I don't know if I'll be here. I may be repeating 3rd density, for all I know. Don says, question 26, then will there be at that time any 5th density or 6th density beings on the surface of the planet? Ra says, not for a fairly long measure of your time, as 4th density beings need to spend their learned teaching space-time with their own densities entities. So this is a question that makes me wonder. I'm not sure if they mean one or both of the things I'm going to say here. First of all, two questions were, when the harvest is complete, are there going to be 4th density beings inhabited the planet. And Ra says, yes, this is correct. I don't know if they said it before, but I think in previous sessions we've talked about how fourth density needs to have some time, probably a couple of thousand years, to get accustomed and be invisible to third density for another third density cycle to begin. So we can kind of see already the evolution of third density to fourth density, which it's undergoing right now. Then fourth density, after the harvest, needs to be by themselves to get used to the new vibrations of fourth density and become lighter, say. And that would make them invisible to third density, so they can coexist in the same planetary sphere. When we say planetary sphere and not planet, is because when we say planet, we're talking about third density planet here, like the planet we know. When we say planetary sphere, we're talking about the whole sphere that is harboring third density, fourth density, and possibly fifth density. But at this point, we have third and fourth density that's activated. That sphere is also activated, the fourth density sphere. So Ra says that not for a fairly long measure of your time as fourth density beings need to spend their learned teaching space-time with their own densities entities. Now Don is not asking about third density, but about fifth density, if they're going to be here living in with fourth density. So a couple of things so fourth density is going to spend their time learning the lessons of love, compassion, and understanding, and they're going to do that, in tandem with fifth density, of course, but as teachers, not as mingling together here or mingle together. Rather, see, the two scenarios that I'm putting here are the fifth densities coming to fourth density before the graduation and living here and helping towards the end? I don't know. Or if it's once there is a harvest into fourth density, into fifth density, then we would have also fifth density and fourth density, because the first fourth density, I'm getting confused here. So yeah, no, it must be, because they're saying not for a fairly long measure. Of course, fourth density needs to go and learn to spend their time with their own density entities. So in the future, let's read the other question, because this means that there is the possibility of fifth density living with fourth density, and but it's not going to happen until the end. But the question is, because fourth density does communicate with fifth density in a more meaningful way, and this is where I was getting to. We communicate with other densities, of course. That's just the channeling that we hear all about, and well, the raw material is obviously, from sixth density. So we have communication, but it's not as real or tangible than, say, with us in third density. Whereas in fourth density, it's going to be a lot more tangible, right? Because fifth density it's not veiled like everything is veiled from us. So my question is, does that mean that they're not going to be able to communicate with us yet, unless there's a huge calling, which we're going to get into? Or if they're going to be here also, like present physically here in their own bodies, fifth density bodies? I don't know. But what we know is that fourth density needs to be on their own for a long measure of our time. I don't know. It's one of my questions. If you have any insights, let me know. I love reading what you say. Dahl says, then basically what you're saying is that at that point, the teachings of fifth or sixth density beings would not be too well understood by the new fourth density entities. And Ross says, do you wish to query us upon this point? I guess, let's see what Don said. Then Don said, then basically what you're saying is that at that point, the teachings of fifth or sixth density beings would not be too well understood. See, this is where I was getting into. New fourth density entities. The newbies in fourth density. And so Ra says, that's important, because that's showing how Ra there's no question. So Ross says, what are you trying to say? Are you trying to question, or are you making a statement? So Don says, I guess I didn't state that correctly. Is it true that the new fourth density beings then need to evolve in their thinking to reach a point where fifth density lessons would be of value? Now Ross says, we grasp the thrust of your query. Although it is true that as fourth density beings progress, they have more and more need for other density teachings, it is also true that just as we speak to you due to the calling, so the information called is always available. It is simply that fifth density beings will not live upon the surface of the planetary sphere until the planet reaches fifth density vibratory level. Here is the part of my confusion. Maybe you can help me, weave this together. See, it's the living coexisting together, right? That's what they're saying. And that part where they are being called, Ra clarifies and says, yes, that call is always available, just like it is here. That's what they're saying. Although it is true that as fourth density beings progress, have more and more need for other density teachings, it is also true that just as we speak to you, basically, the whole creation is available for us, even here, and we can see that. It depends on our calling and our will, focus into what we want to learn. What do you want to learn? Do you want to learn engineering? Do you want to learn how to, plant trees? Do you want to learn how to communicate with other beings, channeling? Whatever you want to learn is there. You want to learn how the universe was made? Whatever you want to learn is always available, and you will always get the information. What you do with the information is, your own free will, but that's always there. So in fourth density is no different. However, what they're saying is that the fifth density beings will not live upon the surface of the planetary field until the planet reaches fifth density vibratory level. So I guess my confusion comes or stems from Don asking if they won't be here until the end of say the harvest. And then I guess the question was, I need to go back. What you're saying is that at the point teaching the fifth density or sixth density beings will not be too well understood. This is the question I just read. Yes. Because see, Don stated this question well in question 26 when he said, will there be at that time any fifth density or sixth density beings on the surface of the planets? And no, and Ra said no. So I think that was probably just my confusion. Forgive me for that. So that's the whole thing. It's just a very complicated way of saying no entities can live on a planet that is not vibrating at that level or that frequency. So just like right now, no fourth density beings could habitate this planet until it reached fourth density, which is recent. Now they can, and they're coming. That's why they're here. That's why the new kids are fourth density, at least fourth density. They are not third density anymore. These kids, after 2012, we have what do they call it? We have crossed that discrete boundary that is of fourth vibratory level. So these kids are now fourth density, at least. And that's how they come, and they are incarnate here. So fifth density would be the same. That's what I'm assuming. So that's a good parallel actually for what we have here in third density, going into fourth and then fourth to fifth. All right, we have a couple more questions now. Don says, I was wondering then if the mechanism of teach learning was the same relatively then in fourth density. From what you say, it seems that it's necessary for first the call to exist for the teach learning of fifth density to be given to fourth, just as a call must exist here before fourth density lessons are given to third. Is this correct? Ross says, this query is misguided, for experience in fourth density is emphatically not the same as third density experience. However, it is correct that the same mechanism of calling predisposes the information received in a way consonant with free will. So let's see where Don was kind of misguided in the question, or the way he phrased it. He says the mechanism of teach learning was the same that in fourth density here. And I think that's where it's misguided. Because he says, from what you say, it seems that it's necessary for first the call to exist for the teach learning of fifth density begin. But this is the part that he's right? Because he says, well, the first one is that where it's misguided is that in third density, the way to experience is to experience reality is completely different than third. Then third and fourth are completely different. There is no veil. That's a huge difference. So here the mechanism for calling is different because you are in the darkness. You are simply calling out of faith. Faith is not as strong, if any sort of faith exists, in fourth density. Only, the knowing of the creator and wanting to know more of the creator, which is yourself. But here is so obscure. Think about it. You're watching this. You're one of the few that watches these videos. This videos only reach, so far, a couple of hundred people at most, at least weekly that I see. So, and this is very obscure work, or not work, material. Obscure not because of dark, macabre stuff, obviously, but just obscure that, just like any other information is obscure. A lot of medical stuff is being obscure right now, and other information that the elite wants to keep obscure. Especially this is material that is really important for the self to know itself. They don't want that. The elite doesn't want that. The Orion group doesn't want this. So, where was I going with this? It's obscure here, and you need a lot of faith to believe in this and to feel it in you. A lot of people may feel like, please, I'm not going to believe in that. I have other important things to do, and good for them. They have that. I have been there. And I know what it feels. So in fourth density, you don't have that. It's very crystal clear. Let's call it that way. So that's where this query was misguided. Ra is not missing anything. That's amazing. But yeah, the mechanism, when Don says the mechanism of teach learning was the same, relatively, it's not the same than in fourth density. However, what he says is true, that you first need to have a call, to get the information, obviously. But that in fourth density is almost like, I want to eat, here in third density. It's a calling, yes, I feel hungry. In fourth density, it's like, yeah, I want to know. So whatever you ask, you're just going to get, and there's, I'm sure, a lot of information to process in fourth density. So collectively, remember, it's all collective. It must be fun, fourth density. I've never actually given any thought, but yeah, must be a lot of fun. Don says, question 30. You stated that the key to strengthening the will is concentration. Can you tell me the relative importance of the following aids to concentration? I have listed silence, temperature control, comfort of body, screening as a Faraday cage would screen electromagnetic radiation, visible light screening, and a constant smell such as the use of incense for strengthening your concentration meditation. In other words, an isolation type of situation. You mentioned that this was one of the function of the pyramid. So Ra says the analogies of body complex to mind and spirit complex activities have been discussed previously. You may consider all of these aforementioned aids as those helpful to the stimulation of that which in actuality aids concentration, that being the will of the entity. This free will may be focused on any object or goal. So I'm just going to read the next question because it's related to this, and we're just going to cover everything afterward. Don says in question 31, I was really trying to get at whether it would be of great importance to construct a better place for our meditations. We have distractions here of the types which I mentioned, and I know that it is our total free will as to whether we construct this or not. But I was just trying to get at the principles. For instance, the Faraday cage would be quite a big construction, and I was wondering if it would be of any real value. And Ra says, without infringing upon free will, or basically telling you what to do, we feel it possible to state that the Faraday cage and the isolation tank are gadgets. The surrounding of self in a sylvan, which means sort of like nature or natural environment, atmosphere. Apart from distractions, in a place of working used for no other purpose, in which you and your associates agree to lay aside all goals, but that of the meditative seeking of the infinite creator is, shall we say, no gadgetry, but the making use of the creation of the Father in second density love and in the love and support of other selves. So Don was just asking, all the things that we can do to isolate ourselves so we can have a dedicated place for meditation. And we know about that, in terms of how much distraction we can have for, but this was all in terms of strengthening the will. And this is where the question really goes to, it's not that we need to be in nature to meditate. Like Ra is saying here, the sylvan atmosphere. I love the vocabulary. It's so rich. So, yes, basically all of that is gadgets. They do help. It's not to say like they're not important. Anything can be important. You can put a robe on. You can put, your favorite blanket on. Does that mean we all need to find a favorite blanket? My childhood, do I have it here? Is it visible? My childhood, teddy bear there that I actually got gifted when I hurt my eye and I got this scar that I have in my eye. A long story, anyhow. Maybe meditating would it help? Yes, but is it essential? No. They're gadgets. They're there to help. Everything that Don said. And I think it's funny because this is 1981 and Don says we have all these distractions. Think about it now with all the radiation we have from all different G's that we need to endure, without even knowing. And smartphones now with notifications and all this stuff, or even without notifications, you just put your phone away. I have this rule in my life that I don't look at my phone unless I just want to look at the time, but I don't look at notifications or anything on my phone until I'm done with my morning routine. I could get calls, I could get whatever, doesn't matter. I'm going through my routine, and after that, which includes taking my dog out, that's part of my sylvan atmosphere, just enjoying nature in the morning. But then, after that is where I can go on into the world, and people got used to that already, and they know that until possibly 11 or 12 in the morning, I'm not accessible at all. So, in any case, this is to the point that's really important here is meditation or strengthening of the will. That's the point, not meditation. Meditation can be done anywhere. It could be done walking. There's walking Zen, sitting Zen, that would be Sarsen, which is the one we're all used to, sitting down, or, standing Zen, whatever, laying Zen. I think that's not part of it. The four, what do they call them in Buddhism? I forgot. My God. Anyhow, Four Noble States? No, Four Noble Truths. I forgot. We can meditate. The meditative state is available at all times. But for strengthening the will, yes, maybe something like that would be helpful. And it's funny that they mentioned the Father here too, because that's when they say the Father in second density love. See, the Father, the creation of the Father, which is light. Everything is light. That's why this is the realm of God, or the Father. I thy Father, or I and my Father. I forgot what it says. So the Father in second density love, the creation in second density love, meaning this, the love of nature manifested as the Father. And it's a helpful thing. And of course, if you're gonna do it with others, then make sure they're there to meditate and not to be on their phones and not to be throwing stones or playing with the grass. Just be focused on whatever it is, and that's focusing of the will. That is the principal point here and what Don asking. So that's all I got for session 43. This last part was very light, I think, very father-like light. And the only conclusion I have out of this is we got a couple of things. We are in knowing what it is to live and to know what are the purposes in fourth and fifth density. We have it here too. Those lessons we're learning here too. People may forget that, you know, the lessons of fourth and fifth density, they're there, but they're also accessible here, and you can increase a lot your learned teachings by simply absorbing your life as it is. You don't have to seek anything for life to come to you. You have your own life. Like, you have the object of study is the self, Ra says, and I agree. The self is not only your body, obviously, it's not only your mind, but is everything that is you. You know, this environment, wherever you live, your neighbors, you know, your dog, the trees, everything that surrounds you is you. Things that happen to you, situations, is you. Everything is you. So studying that is important, and you can see where those situations fall into your experience. Are they getting stuck in the lower chakras? Are they going up to the heart? Are they stuck in the heart and they need to be consider, you know, you need to wise up to distribute more your love. So all of this is important, and we're talking about the impending harvest, the ascension process, which, you know, we always keep in mind. And yep, it's something to keep in mind, of course, because this is it. Kuo of the Confederation, which is a combination of Ra, Latui, and Hatan, 3 different entities joined together for this. They say that this is very likely, especially if you're watching this video, this is very likely your last incarnation on planet Earth, where, not because, you know, I doubt you're going to be a repeater. I think that's used sometimes by some people to instill some fear. If you're interested in this, chances are, you know, and yes, you may be confused by things in your life and you think you may be, you know, all messed up. It's not true. This information is getting to you just because you're interested and you have studied this already. Otherwise, this would be like a weird language, space language, ET language that nobody understands. And rightly so, a lot of people don't understand. So, you know, this is not to sound elitist, because it's not. You know, it's just, you know, what is your consciousness concentrated on? What is your consciousness pointing at? Well, you know, this is what you're interested in. So harvest need not be something that you're concerned about for your own self. That could be your ego talking and saying like, oh, are we going to save ourselves? The ego is not a thing. So it's not, there's nothing going on there that's going to save itself, or, you know, so I need to make it to fourth. There is no I that needs to make it to fourth. I know that's deep, but it's the truth. There is no ego. Sometimes the ego can get there. But in any case, so for what's relevant to you, and this is just my humble opinion, I believe what we have to do is just concentrate on being ourselves, which is not too much to ask. Be ourselves so we can share the light and the love that we naturally have by being ourselves. Anything else that the exterior or even your mind, your conditioned mind may tell you otherwise, it's not true. You know, you're here to spread that light, whatever that may be, in whatever expression you have. That's it. Be that. You're gonna help others naturally without you even saying like, I need to help others. No, you don't need to help others. You need to be yourself, and by being yourself, you're already helping other people. And at the same time, you're knowing more yourself, and that means growth in the other densities where you have been already. Very likely you're a 6th density wanderer, so that means that you still have lessons of love and light, or love and wisdom, and that's being, you know, that's happening right now. So make use of catalyst and experience for that, because with that you also become brighter and help others, and it's just like a whole, you know, organism that's going on, all of us together here being just one big bowl of love and light. So that's it. That's my conclusion. I hope it helps. I hope it inspires you to just be yourself. It's not too much to ask. Love yourself and you will love others by default. So, and love your darkness. Whatever your dark side is, that's what you need to love the most, because now you're going to be able to love others and their darkness even more than you do now. Thank you so much for watching these videos. As I said always, thank you, thank you, thank you. I love you because we are simply one, talking to each other and reminding ourselves. It's just like different neurons connecting and talking to each other, but just one brain talking to itself. I'll see you in session 44.